Hi, I'm Tamzan. I'm going to talk to you today about the Wiki List tool, which I use quite a lot for working on lists of people from Wikidata or Wikipedia, specifically in relation to events. So let me show you how it works. This is the Wiki List tool page on Meta. Make sure you go to Wiki List tool. There's a bunch of other similarly named pages. This will describe the tool a bit and point out some of the limitations with it. It also gives you some example spreadsheets, which we'll look at in a second, and describes some functions in this tool that are not in the extension. So this tool is working off a Google Sheet extension. So before you can use it, you'll need to have the extensions. So that's a different meta page. Here, it's called Wikipedia and Wikidata Tools. It used to be Wikipedia Tools for Google Spreadsheets, but I asked if we could have some Wikidata things included, and so we changed the name. And so if you go to this link here, under external links, you'll get to the page on Google Workspace where you can install it. I've already got it, of course, but I did want to point out down here is a list of all the functions, and you can get to those through the documentation once you've installed it, but here is a spreadsheet where you can actually see the functions being used, all of them in a spreadsheet, which is quite handy if you're trying to figure out the syntax and it's not clear elsewhere. So once you've installed your extension, you come back to the Wikilist page on Meta and scroll down to the example spreadsheets, and we'll look at the Wikilist tool APA 2022 first. If it doesn't look like this when you open it up, you may just need to check that the extension is turned on in your sheet. So let me just show you under Add-ons, Manage Add-ons. It'll say installed, but then there's these three dots here, and that hides this little option of using this document, which is ticked for me, but I have occasionally found I need to turn it off and on again. I've only had to do it once, but it's just worth checking if a sheet doesn't look like you expect it to when you open it up. I should mention these tools can be a little bit glitchy. It may be about the size of your worksheet sometimes, but also sometimes they just, you know the formula you're right, but it's just not working. It returns an error for everything. And 12 hours later, it's absolutely fine again. So just be aware of that. If you are going to rely on it on an event, you might want to make a copy, a static copy of the data, and I'll show you how to do that later. So let's go through how this sheet is working. So in this Wiki APA 2022 spreadsheet, you begin by pasting in a list of your target people, a list of names, or target articles. It doesn't have to be people, of course. From that, there are these formulae that use the functions of the Google extension to look up bits of information for you. So it brings back the Wikidata QID. Here it's bringing back a link to the Wikidata item and get the description and whether there's an image or not, that kind of thing. In this particular example, there's no error handling, so you just get a ref if there is no information on Wikidata. Page views is blank here right now. I'll show you why in a minute. You can also very quickly whip up a quick statements batch. So this quick statements is saying for this Wikidata QID, add a statement that says on the focus list of a particular Wikimedia project, and this is the QID of the Wikimedia project. So you can simply copy your quick statements, go to the quick statements tool, make a new batch, paste them in, and they'll look like this. So very quick and easy to do quick statements from it. Right, so the revision ID and the auth score aren't working on this example spreadsheet. Now these functions, the revision ID and the auth score, come from a script that is in this spreadsheet. So in order to access these functions, they're not in the Google extension, they're in the spreadsheet. So you'll need to make a copy of the spreadsheet from the Wikilist tool. That's what makes this the Wikilist tool and not just using the Google Sheet extension, right? They're not working here because something changed since these scripts were written about how these page titles are stored. So I discovered by accident it works on single word article titles. And so that's when I realized you just need to replace the spaces in article titles with an underscore and it will start working again. And so that's why I've put a second example spreadsheet onto the Wiki List page, medical school reunion, where I've done that replacement with an underscore. Right, so on this one, let me show you how this is working. We have Suzanne Pittimer, so I've pasted in a list of names here. It's retrieving, using this formula here, the Wikidata QID from, it's looking this up on Wikipedia going, yes, there's a page called this, and this is the Wikidata QID attached to it. And then the link and the label and the description and so on. So this is a list of speakers at a medical school reunion that's coming up shortly. It's very unlikely the American record producer's coming to this medical school reunion. So what I can do, it's picking up the wrong person because I need to add some pediatrician. Give a type when you need to. I can either add the disambiguation information after the page title here, and then it will pick up the right person, or I can just correct the QID. So this sheet can work off a QID or off. Here we go. So let's show this person here hasn't got a Wikipedia page, so I can paste in his QID instead, and then it will bring in all the information. So it can work off either. All right, so it's pulling information from Wikidata. Over here on the right hand side, we have information from Wikipedia. So there's a link to the article, current revision ID and OR score, page views. You can choose the frequency. I've chosen a month and a year, and then I've got some of those quick statements. I just want to point out as well, this will work in multiple languages. So this is all in English because that's what's really most relevant for this event. But I've included a column here that looks for the Arabic Wikipedia page and links it to Arabic Wikipedia, just so that you can see how to set up the statements or the formulae to query a different language instead. All right, so what are we doing with this information rather than just having a big long column? Well, there are these other sheets. So this is particularly nice. Nice little graph that shows you how many articles of different quality you have. So if I'm having an editing event, then I can focus on improving the start articles or looking in this group to see if there's anyone that needs a page. And then the third tab here is headshot priorities. So it ranks people by page views. I've chosen across a year, but you can choose differently. And displays me their current headshot and shows me nicely the people that don't have it. So I can focus. I've got quite a lot of people here with Wikipedia pages because they have page views and no image at all. So I can go and shoulder tap them and say, would you like to have a headshot taken? One other thing to point out, if you want a snapshot of your data maybe at the start of an editing project, you can create another sheet and paste values only, and then these won't update automatically if Wikidata changes. So then you can see what your data was like at the beginning and what it was like at the end. Another thing that this spreadsheet is good for is you can use this to set up a table for an event page on Wikipedia. To do that, I tend to go through this website. Actually, I just want to copy a bit more data than that. And I go to this table convert site in the Excel to Media Wiki, and you paste your data into a box at the top. There's a middle section that lets you edit it, and then the output at the bottom, which you can just copy to clipboard, is your table in wiki format, which is really nice. And so I discovered through trial and error that it's a lot easier if you put a column with square brackets around your text. Do that in Google Sheets first because it's quite hard. Although you can edit the data here, in lots of ways, it was actually really hard to get square brackets around a string of text. So it's much easier to do that in Google Sheets. And then you don't have to go through and link things that you want linked in your wiki table once you get to wiki. And so that's how I set up some tables on this event page. Let's look at the improve section. So we had links to Wikidata QID, to the Wikipedia page, and then I put in the annual views, Wikidata description, just from this Google Sheet as a good starting point. So it's quite quick to generate these sorts of tables. So those are the main features of the Wiki List tool. One other thing to know about this, I mentioned earlier that it can be a bit glitchy, and it can be size limited. So if you get down to 100 rows, sometimes maybe 200 rows, depending on your number of columns, that might be an awful lot of API calls that are going on, and you might just find yourself with lots of errors, even though you know there's data in Wikidata and it worked fine yesterday, suddenly today it's not. It may be the size of your sheet that's a problem. Either you need to split some data out into a second one, or I recommend, of course, deleting any columns and rows that you don't need, delete the tabs that you don't need, just to keep that manageable. Okay, but this is a great flexible tool, I think, for making lists from Wikidata and Wikipedia.